People of Rome 2, welcome to this groundbreaking new mod, soon to be released, which adds manpower and population mechanic to the Rome 2 game, something that a lot of people have been wanting since the release of Rome 2 Total War. So now I'm going to walk you through how this all works and how you can get all the information you need and how it's going to impact how you play the game. So when you start your campaign, you will have the option of getting this event message. It won't pop up, so you will actually have to click on your event messages button here and then open it. And it gives you a brief rundown of what the mod is and the different mechanics involved in this new, or the details of this new mechanic. There's also a little credits down the bottom if you're really interested. Now, the population in this mod is based on each region. So each region has a population roughly in a ratio of 1 to 10 into the historical estimated populations for this period. So we can click on a settlement and we can see here in the top left corner we see the total population of Rome. If we click on Neapolis, we can see it in Neapolis, Velathri, Ariminum. Now, this population is then broken down into 4 population classes. So we can hover over the 3 people icon there and we get a tooltip which breaks all that information down. So you can see that Rome has 4 classes: patricians, plebeians, proletarii, and peregrini. And that roughly equates to nobles or first-class citizens, warrior class or second class, kind of the wealthier middle-class citizens. Then you've got the proletarii, which are the poorer people, and then you have the peregrini, which are the foreigners. So each of these classes has a bit of a role in how this mechanic works. The ratio, each faction has a ratio of what percentage of each class should be of the total population, and that will impact things such as immigration, and also a number of effects that the region will get to income. At the bottom of that tooltip you can see there that there are effects like heartland and densely populated. Each region can have up to 3 effects, and this one has only 2 because the other one is actually at 0. It would give a 0% bonus, which we don't display it. But those which have either a negative or a positive impact will be displayed. Heartland there on Rome, you can see, that reflects the percentage of the foreign population, or the peregrini. If that percentage gets too high, then the subsistence income will be reduced. Now, at the start of the game, most regions should have a heartland effect applied to them. But as you expand, when you conquer regions, as I'll show later in this walkthrough, when you capture a region, all the population of that region will become a foreign population, and you'll have to rebuild your citizen population from scratch. And that's because they're the enemy, and you've taken them, and you're not going to give them citizenship straight away. So you're not going to go and take a Etruscan city and then recruit them straight away into the Roman legions. They'd be auxilia or something like that, and that's how we've set it up for auxilia. So the auxilia will use that foreign population to recruit units, whereas the normal legions will require the citizen units. Now, this population mechanic works for all factions, and there's a lot of faction uniqueness into it. So you can see that Rome there, the class names, if we click on Velathri, you can only do this within the same province. Velathri has very different class names because it's a different culture, different language, and so we've reflected that. Now, we have about 15 at the moment completed with the different class names. And we'll keep adding to that as we do more research into the languages used and such things. Now, you can see there's another region effect which is densely populated, which is based on the total population of the region. So there's about four categories. You're going to have densely populated, very densely populated. Oh, and that's actually a typo I'll fix before release. Then you'll have sparsely populated and very sparsely populated. Oh, and there's a middle one, so 5. And each one having a varied range of its bonus or malus to all income. Then there's also a bonus to the percentage of nobles or first class patricians that you have in your region, and also the same for the second class or plebeians in Rome's case. Now that is based on the percentage of them relative to the ideal percentage. So for Rome we have a 5% nobles is what they want in all their settlements, and if any settlement or region doesn't have 5% nobles or patricians, then they will get either a malus to income from a certain part of the income. I think it's agricultural income for the nobles, and it would be like industrial and cultural income for the plebeians. So if you have too many of them, then you'll get a bonus to those things, to those types of income, and if you have not enough, you'll get a malus to them. So at the start of the game, it all starts off pretty much in balance, but that will change over the course. Now you can see next to the class numbers there is a 0 in brackets, and that will be used to display the immigration mechanic we have here. Now each region is broken down into 4 region types, that being your faction capital, your province capitals, your minor regions like Neapolis, and frontier regions. And each one will be impacted by various things in different ways. So if you're at war, then the frontier regions will be less desirable than the ones which are not surrounded by enemy regions. And people will move away from the less desirable regions into neighboring regions which are more desirable. That will be very slow. It'll be up to around 1% per region to region movement. So you're not going to see massive migrations with that mechanic, but it's just something small to add a bit of flavor and improve your newly conquered regions will be significantly benefited from that. Okay, so that is how the population class mechanics works. There is also a growth, natural growth to these population numbers. And now to get all that information, we hover over the actual number. Now the actual number then shows us a list of whatever is actually impacting the growth in this region. So you're going to have religion or culture. So if you have a majority culture in your region, then you get a bonus to your growth. If it's your faction capital, you get a bonus. And there's a whole list of about 15 different things which can give you a bonus or malus if they're active, like if you're being besieged or you've just conquered a region, or if there's enemy armies in the region. Such things will impact the amount of growth that region has. And so all your populations will increase and decrease every turn, and as you recruit and replenish. So now there is recruitment. Recruitment, each unit requires a different type of population class to recruit. So for Hastati here, we can see that we require plebeian, 160 plebeians to recruit 1 Hastati unit, and we have 7,560 plebeians to start with in Rome. If we look over the Rurari, we can see that they're actually recruiting from the proletari population, also need 160. The levies, also from the proletari, and velites as well. Most your core units, your good units will come from the second class citizens for pretty much all factions, and you'll have some, extra special units, extra elite units which will come from the nobles, like, your elite cavalry or something like that. And your really basic cannon fodder units will come from the third class usually. Then you'll have, of course, your auxiliary units which will come from the foreign population. And then we have the mercenary recruitment. Now mercenary recruitment works a little bit different to normal recruitment in that if the mercenaries of your culture. So, for instance, Italian spearmen being recruited in a region which is owned by an Italian faction, like Rome or the Etruscans, then it will take the population from that region's citizen population. So if you send an army off into one of the Celtic or Gallic or into Gaul, and you want to recruit Gallic mercenaries from the Arverni, right, then you're taking their population of citizens into your army as you recruit mercenaries. However, if you were to go into Gaul and you were to capture a region in Gaul, when you capture a region, all those population of citizens, those first, second, and third class population classes, will all be transferred into the foreigner population. And then recruiting those mercenaries in that region when you own it and you're not of that culture will then require the foreigner population to populate the mercenary recruitment. So it depends on who owns the region and the culture of the mercenaries being recruited. Now, naval recruitment, it works a little differently again. Now, mercenaries in naval recruitment actually require no population. They're the only units really which don't require population because it's really hard to tell. You're not really in a Italian region. You're in the middle of the ocean when you can recruit them. So you can't really tell where their population is coming from. Therefore, we've just not enabled population to work with naval mercenaries. Think of them as stateless pirates. The normal naval units, the factional naval units, on the other hand, they will take their population always from the faction capital. So we can look here and we can see the faction capitals. Proletari 41240, and then we can go and have a look how many. You can see there it is the faction capital's population for that class, which is referenced when recruiting a naval unit. And that will be the same for replenishing naval units as well. Now, replenishment with a normal army works different to naval. It doesn't take it from your faction capital. It takes it from whatever region you're in. So if you have, this actually adds another reason to actually make client states, because if you conquer another region where you could make it a client state, you lose all that citizen population. But if you keep it as a client state, you can then move into the client state and you can replenish your armies there and use up their population. So it just gives another little incentive to make client states and satrapies so that you don't have to always battle against trying to create enough people to replenish your armies. Now, if we go in there and capture one and actually conquer it, as I'll show you now, let's just get rid of this guy first. Okay, so if we go in there and conquer that and we click occupy, before, when I showed you the classes, you could see that they were all broken down between the 4 different classes. But now we're going to click on Velathri, and we can see that the population is all moved to the Peregrini, and the classes are now Roman classes and not named as Etruscan classes. In Ariminum, because it's still owned by the Etruscans, you can see the class names are still the Etruscan classes. So now the army can't actually recruit anymore. Replenish, because it hasn't got enough people. Even though we own the region, it needs people to actually replenish. So we can then we will have to move back into Rome to replenish that army, or we have to wait until Velathri gets enough population to be able to support the replenishment of the army. The army replenishment is based on the total number of people needed from each class, and if you cannot refill an army entirely, then it will not replenish in that region. And that is about all that there is to this mechanic. I mean, it's quite complex, and all the actual percentage modifiers and such to the growth and immigration and all these kind of things. If you want to get the actual numbers that we're going to be using, all that will be on our Total War Center forum. So you can look there. It's too much information to just put into the UI here. It would be way too cluttered. Now, one thing before I finish up here is that these growth values are just averages. They're not the actual growth you're going to see. They're just meant to indicate to you how things are impacting your region. The reason that is because each of those modifiers impacts the different classes differently. So a food shortage, for instance, will have a much bigger impact on your lower class population than it will on your nobles, because the nobles have lots of money, and even when there's a food shortage, they can still manage to pay the extra cost to buy the more expensive food when it's more rare. And that's the same thing for also for immigration. So some people will want to move from certain places more than others. All right, so this will be released hopefully pretty soon. We're very, very close to finishing it up. We're just in balancing, and the last couple of little things we're finishing off, like the typo you might have seen earlier. And so we hope to be able to get this into your hands pretty soon and get your feedback on what you think about playing it.